so Monsanto is the company that produces RoundUp weed killer, and we've talked about that. Actually, it was either last episode or the one before, but there were a couple of really big fat verdicts that had come out. One for like 175 million, and one for 332 million.
And those were for residential uses.
Residential
of the
use.
RoundUp.
Yeah. Well, they got slammed again, and this is a whopper. So it was a Missouri award, $1.56 billion.
Prioritizing profits.
Dangerous drug and product cases.
Welcome back. Another episode, another week, another episode. Prioritizing profits, dangerous drug and product cases. We're back at it again. I'm all over the place right now. I feel like I've gone through so many different time zones, traveled across the country, across the world. I don't even know what day of the week it is.
Well, you do know it's Wednesday because Wednesday is when we record.
That's the only
way you know.
Yeah, it's keeping me grounded. Otherwise,
thank God for the podcast.
Yeah, it's like Inception, where you got to have your grounding totem. If anyone gets that reference, probably won't. A little bit older. Anyways, back at it again. We had a fantastic weekend. It was your birthday weekend. We went to Palm Springs. Did you have fun? How was it?
Oh man, it was amazing. It was like my best birthday ever, and I was having all kinds of issues about having the 60th and just had this thing in my head about, I don't know, for some reason I just didn't think I was going to ever get to 60, and partially because my mom passed away at 59, which is relatively early. Not that we have the same lifestyle or health or anything, but it just seemed like a big hurdle. So yeah, I made it, and it was really fun. And I think you guys just like went all out. I have to say the t-shirts were like a huge hit. I did post on social media, and everybody absolutely loves them. And
I'm glad.
Yeah, and the fact that the dogs were involved as well. And, for most people who don't know,
yeah,
you guys got like these matching t-shirts, and it said birthday girl with a really crazy picture of my face on it.
Yes. That was actually originated Christina's idea, because she knows, we for my NFT conventions, we get my custom jackets made. And so when she was looking through that for Amsterdam, she saw that they did shirts as well. And then they had like some birthday events and birthday shirts. And so she just kind of got all that organized. And then we had the idea for the dogs to get the dogs involved because it's a whole family celebration, obviously. Wanted to go all out. And so, yeah, there was this whole idea of saving it until it was supposed to be you wake up and when you come out, and then, we're all going to be wearing it. But you guys had gotten up a lot earlier, took the dogs on a walk, so we had to kind of sneakily work around that and go for the surprise. Well,
and actually, I was just going to the bathroom, and then I'm told, don't come out until we tell you. And so when I came out, they're all wearing these matching T-shirts, and the dogs have little bandanas with my face on them, and it was super cute. So it was really fun, and it was your guys' first trip to Palm Springs. So
yes.
What did you guys think of Palm Springs?
It was fantastic. It was good. It was nice, kind of like a relaxation weekend and trip. Palm Springs is nice because it's not super crazy. Compared to like LA and the boardwalk and all that. I mean, it gets pretty insane over there just with the amount of people and traffic. And Palm Springs, complete opposite. But you still have that nice weather, be able to walk around, eat out on the patio. And it was a good time overall. I'm glad that we were able to make the 60th birthday a memorable one and a good one.
Yeah,
it's definitely a big number, big date.
Yeah, and a huge number. But now, it's like I kind of want that treatment for every birthday.
Yeah.
And the house was amazing. It was an Airbnb. And the backyard was just like a resort, and got to kind of lounge around by the pool and hit the hot tub. And actually, we finally got into the casita after you guys left. There was a whole nother outside entrance room with a little kitchenette and bedroom and bathroom. So anyway, we need like a bigger group next time, I think.
Yeah.
It's a cool party house. Although, of course, you can't have parties at Airbnbs, but
I
family time.
Yeah, some of them might be more open than others. That one looked like a party house for sure. I mean, the backyard was absolutely insane. And but overall, I think it was a fantastic weekend. It sounds like you enjoyed the birthday. I'm glad that your Facebook fans have been enjoying the pictures. It's interesting because you post it so quickly. Like while we're out at lunch, you post about the lunch, or
Well, that was
as soon
a
as it
check-in,
happens.
I'm actually not that great. I mean, I haven't really figured all the social media stuff out. So, I know people can do a check-in when they're not there, but I only know how to do a check-in if you're there and the location pops right up.
Yeah.
So it's either that now or never.
Yeah, I think, it's good to just post as much as you can, obviously. But when you do it right then in that moment, then you don't, push it off and forget. I will say, though, sometimes your choice of photo is interesting. Not personally what I would choose with how good I'm looking in some of those. But, it's okay. It's all right. We're letting all the family and friends and fans, I suppose, know what's going on in between shows.
Well, I just think you look good in all pictures. So
I appreciate that.
I'm a little biased.
Well, let's hop into the cases.
All right.
As always, we will start with updates on cases.
Yeah, so updates. A couple of things happened on my birthday week. Bad for Monsanto. And so Monsanto is the company that produces RoundUp weed killer, and we've talked about that. Actually, it was either last episode or the one before, but there were a couple of really big fat verdicts that had come out. One for like 175 million, and one for 332 million.
And those were for residential uses.
Residential
of the
use.
RoundUp.
Yeah. Well, they got slammed again, and this is a whopper. So it was a Missouri award, 1.56 billion. Yeah.
An individual.
Well, so actually it was 3 individuals. So they combined 3 people who had all suffered from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. They were all residential users of the product again, but they were combined 3 people in one trial. And they each of them got $500 million in punitives, and then they looked at the individual damages for their compensatory damages. One got $38 million, one $17.5 million, and one $5.6 million. So total of all of this comes out to $1.56 billion. So, Jesus. Seriously slammed. And again, the huge part of this is the punitive damages. And, as we've talked about, what that says is that juries are pissed off. This isn't like, oh, gosh, we didn't know we were hurting people. Oh, we're so sorry. Oops. No, this is like effers knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
You could have saved these people. It's almost to the level of intent,
Yeah.
just really extreme. And so they are taking this extremely seriously. So bad news for them.
Yeah.
And we have talked about also that these cases have been going on for quite a long time. And there were initially 165,000 lawsuits filed about, about RoundUp, the weed killer, and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, very specific disease that it's causing. Yeah. And then in 2020, they settled most of them for $10.9 billion.
Wow.
But there were still some remaining cases, and cases are continuing to be filed.
Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of, with the most recent case, it makes that 10.9 billion seem like a good deal. Because, this is just 3 cases thrown together, and that was 1.5.
Yeah. Well, and that's the reality is that these global settlements are a good deal for them because they're not going to be taking into account punitive damages. If they kind of skirt that whole issue, they can avoid the punitive damage issues if they'll just pay people, fairly, reasonably compensate people for their injuries. And, but again, they're still saying they didn't do anything wrong. They're still denying liability. But obviously juries are not buying that.
Yeah, not even close. And this isn't a close call. Like you said, juries have to be absolutely fucking pissed for these 500
kind of money,
million
right?
For an individual.
Yeah.
That's
each individual, 3 individuals.
Each individual. It's like indescribable amount of money to try to imagine, for one person trying to even attempt to spend that.
Yeah.
So why did they choose to throw these 3 cases specifically together? Is this common? And why would they do that instead of, if each case is so good independently, why throw them all together?
Yeah, well, it can help both sides. It makes for, one trial instead of 3 trials.
Yeah.
And depending on what the setup is, like a lot of times in the multi-district litigations, the judges will require that there'll be, multi-plaintiff trials. It's just more efficient for one thing, because
sense.
all of the evidence as far as what they knew and when they knew it and the product and the science of it, that's all going to be duplicative. And then it's just going to be the individual damages. So it's not unusual for a judge to to put them together again. Just it's much more efficient, and then you only have to burden 1 jury as opposed to 3 juries.
Yeah.
And it's plus or minus. If you lose, you've lost 3. If you win, you've won 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of judges do favor that, and you'll see that quite often in the multi-district litigation. Sometimes even bigger. They'll have like 10 or 15 plaintiffs.
Yeah.
All at once.
And when it is a group of plaintiffs being thrown together for an individual trial, I know with a bellwether, it was almost kind of like a random name in a hat situation where the judge, both sides would kind of give their best cases that they would want to go to trial, and then the judge kind of randomly picks from that pile. Is that what's happening here? Or because it seems like this case specifically with 3 of them, all of them were slam dunks, and they threw them all together, and every single one was just a banger.
Well, and again, we don't know all of the details about how slam dunk they were. I think on the liability thing, obviously they considered it really slam dunk. But when you have 3 different people, you could have somebody who has some other medical conditions that could make it more likely for them to get one of these diseases. There could be other issues going on, other causation issues. So it is certainly possible in one of these that you could find in favor of 2 of them and against on one of them, that the other one maybe had a family history, had other exposures, that sort of thing. So it wouldn't necessarily be, that they would all be all go in the same direction.
So what does this mean for Monsanto going forward? A $1.5 billion on these 3 individual cases, that's not sustainable. They got to be shaking in their boots at this point and looking for another massive settlement, no?
Well, yeah. The crazy thing is that these companies don't really shake in their boots. They're always like, oh, we're fine. And multi-billion dollars. So they're still saying that they're not at fault. There's about 50,000 claims still pending, and cases are getting filed regularly. And again, this is, we've talked about this before, but this is a disease that doesn't happen 2 days after you use it, or even necessarily 2 years after you use it. So there's quite a latency period. And so people are continuing to get diagnosed with the condition, and their statute of limitations hasn't run if they, until they get the diagnosis.
Yeah.
So these cases can just keep coming. We are still taking these cases. They could do another global settlement, or they could try to settle them on a piecemeal basis, one at a time. Again, that's entirely, different companies take different tactics in trying to get these things resolved. I think, with 50,000 pending, that's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
So another global settlement certainly would potentially make sense.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting, too, that it doesn't start... I've totally just blanked on the phrase where statute of limitations, that's what it was. The statute of limitation doesn't start until you're diagnosed. Which means that this can go on for a very long time. And I know that they're denying liability, but obviously with these past cases and their past settlement, it's looking like there probably is a case there. This is something that can be dragged on for so long.
Oh, as long as they're around. Again, it can take many years, and this product's been on the market for many, many years. So yeah, they can kind of just keep coming. This isn't something that's going to go away for them.
I know. And on the topic of lymphoma, that one that's a nasty one. That's something that takes years and years for it to really come up. And even with these large verdicts, $500 million per individual, I was thinking when you said that, I was like, but you got lymphoma. How much time do these people have? Are they, some of these situations, I'm assuming they're probably in their last, on their way out.
Well, yeah, and it is a treatable condition. Some people do last.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not, it's not like pancreatic cancer or something.
Yeah, I don't
it's
really
like
know
really
much about
fast
it,
fast and ugly like that. But then the 500 million was just the punitive end of things. Yeah, that was the big part, really, because the other one's 38 million, so a mere one only got 5.6 million in actual damages. And again, so this would, with these actual damages would address the severity of the disease, how it affected that person.
Yeah.
Again, you would count in. I mean, if somebody was working at a high earning career, their loss of earnings would be more significant.
Yeah.
If somebody was older or retired, it was, so all of those factors go in. And then, how the disease affected them individually, how much pain and suffering, how much treatment, what their prognosis is, all of those things kind of would factor into the specifics.
That makes sense. Well, I'm interested to see how these future cases turn up and if Monsanto is going to kind of do anything about this, because I mean, I know you said they don't really shake in their boots, but 1.5 billion, I feel like that's got to hurt a little bit. And they got to, at least be keeping an eye out for more of those cases. I might hit them like that again.
Yeah. Well, and then there was another, this one is a case that we haven't really talked about, but again, it's Monsanto, and literally my birthday week really sucked for them. I mean, they had that crazy verdict, and then they also, within a couple of days, got slammed with a $165 million verdict. And this was in a case that involved some toxic exposure at a school, and it was a product, polychlorinated biphenyls, and it's a chemical that they produce, and it was used in electrical fixtures. And this one involved 3 people who worked at a school where these chemicals were used, and then over the course of their careers, they were exposed to the condition. So let me see. Actually, it was 8. 6 teachers, a librarian, and a custodian who had worked, in the school. And these chemicals can cause a lot of different problems: neurological, cognitive impairment, respiratory conditions, and some rare cancers. And so this one, it was, again, a big old verdict for some of their products. A more specific case, not, obviously not the weed killer, but I just thought it was interesting that literally like within 2 days, they're like, man, this week just sucks.
So this is same company, Monsanto, but a completely different product. A
different chemical, because they're a big chemical company, obviously. Yeah.
And it was causing, I think you mentioned 16 people or 8. In the
8
school,
people, who are all exposed to it,
that's
and they determined that the levels of this chemical were high during the time that they worked there, and so this repeated exposure. And again, it was a chemical where they knew or should have known that it was dangerous, and yet they continued to sell it, and then people were
So maybe this is a better question for like in the scheme of things, but a company like this where they're manufacturing chemicals, they're releasing them, and some of these situations, some of these cases, clearly they're doing it with negligence, right? Like they are receiving 500 million in punitive damages. The jury's clearly pissed about it. What their actions, after seeing behind the curtain, are just ludicrous. How are they allowed to continue doing business? Are they allowed to just keep releasing products and then having these products cause more problems? Is there a point where someone will step in and be like, okay, you guys have just been shit in the sheets in just about every area?
Well, that can happen. And actually what we're going to talk about when we talk about the Suboxone, that kind of did happen there. So there are, like, the Department of Justice can step in, FDA. There can be criminal charges. That hasn't happened here, but it certainly can under certain circumstances.
Yeah, because the whole chemical industry, I would imagine, is very heavily regulated, and you have to be very careful. And a lot of the stuff they're messing with, that is like on the verge of chemical warfare if you misuse it. And the fact that in the same week that they had 2 settlements with 2 different chemicals that they're creating, and both have punitive damages where the jury is clearly seeing that they are just being negligent, and I think you even mentioned like on the verge of intentional with the 1.5 billion.
Monsanto, they're basically manufacturing chemicals. And as you said, chemicals, we know they're dangerous. But again, and we're willing to use certain chemicals, even if they're dangerous, depending on, what we need them for. But, warn about how to protect yourself, those sorts of things. And especially when it's a chemical like a weed killer that you're using around your home. If you need to use a mask, if you need to use gloves, warn about that. Or perhaps that's not something that should be used by homeowners, individual people who are gardening. Maybe that's something that should be used, when you're in that industry and you have all of the protective gear and the masks and all of that. But again, this here it looks like those things should have happened. And of course, homeowners have all of that kind of protective gear, hazmat stuff lying around their garage. Although if you look at my garage, I could have that, and I probably do somewhere. I got everything else in there. But
not everyone is as well prepared as the Showards.
As much of a hoarder as the Showards, maybe when it comes to the garage. But yeah. So again, I mean, it's a dangerous product. We all understand that, but the danger has to be minimized, and any dangers have to be warned about. And clearly, that didn't happen in this scenario, and that's why they really got slammed. So definitely, just a bad week for them. Well, it was a good week for me.
Good week for us, and bad week for them.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep an eye out on Monsanto, because, I mean, if they're dropping the ball in these two areas, I wouldn't be surprised if there's more that fall through the cracks, and especially with the weed killer. I mean, that was a massive verdict, and like you said, there's cases continuing to be filed. But what else do you have for us for updates?
So another interesting update is, we've talked about the Camp LeJeune cases, the water contamination in the basin, North Carolina. And we mentioned a few episodes back that they had an easier option for people called the Elective program. And what it provided was for certain conditions, ones that were very clearly related to the chemicals that were in the contaminated water, they would allow people to do this quick process, and they would basically the evidentiary requirements are very minor. You just have to have been at the facility for at least 30 days and have one of the specific conditions that we'll mention, and then they were saying that this will be a much quicker payout, because with all of the cases, I think there's almost 120,000 cases filed, that it's really dragging on. Yeah. And again, a lot of these conditions, they are, these nasty cancers, and people are passing away. And with any case, I mean, people just hate, they file a case and they don't get paid for 5 years or 4 years. It's a long time. Yeah. So they were saying this was going to be quite speedy. And of course, everyone's like, oh, well, how fast is it going to be? But they actually have settled the first three. Well, we're going to talk about this last week, but we ran out of time. So it was in the first week of November, they actually did make payments on the first three that had been submitted for a total of $850,000. Wow. Two for $300,000 and one for $250,000.
Big cases.
Yeah, well, decent cases. I mean, again, we're talking about some kind of serious conditions, so it may not be a huge payout for that, but it's a faster payout, a guaranteed payout. You're not taking the risk of going to trial, and having them argue, well, wait, you would have gotten this condition from something else, and you were stationed over here at a different time, and you were exposed to this. A lot of these conditions, I mean, there can be various causative factors. Yeah. So they apparently have 20 other offers out. So it looks like, again, they said it was going to be fast, and they just announced this option in September, and they're already paying, payments out in two months later. Yeah. So, and it will make it, obviously faster and easier if you don't have to go through the really in-depth analysis of each case.
Yeah, I mean, I think speeding up the process for clients is always better, right? I mean, and with over 100,000 cases, I mean,
120,000, yeah.
120,000, you're exactly right. That's going to take an absurd amount of time, and a lot of these conditions you can really get nitpicky with and say, well, I don't know, it could come from this, it could come from this, it's still in the air. So setting these kind of base ground rules here, where if they've been at the base for 30 days and they have this specific condition, then you can kind of just push it through and make sure, some of these people that have terrible conditions, that, maybe they're on their way out, maybe they still have a few more years, they'll actually be able to receive money.
Not just their families, but they can actually, and to help with whatever they need. And so obviously not all of the claims would be eligible for this. It's only certain conditions. Yeah. And there's two tiers, and we'll just kind of briefly go through the actual conditions. If you have these, you could go through this elective option. So there's kidney cancer, liver cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, we were talking about, leukemia, and bladder cancer. So those are all the tier 1 cases. They're slightly valued higher.
Yeah, those are some terrible diseases. And
Right.
conditions.
But again, bladder cancer is actually relatively common, and in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I mean, so this would be a perfect example. In this situation, if you have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and you are at the base, you can get paid, period. It doesn't matter if you use RoundUp.
Yeah. Wow.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So
They won't have to argue that, it's just kind of one and done.
because those are the kinds of things that one would argue. And, and it could be, again, all of these conditions could come from, were you a smoker, were, the cancers. Tier 2 is multiple myeloma, Parkinson's disease, kidney disease. And again, kidney disease, people can get that for so many reasons. And then systemic sclerosis. And systemic scleroderma. So those are tier 2 cases. And to determine the amount of the award, it depends. It depends on how long you were exposed. So they have different categories. If you were there, 30 days to 1 year, 1 year to 5 years, and then more than 5 years. Obviously, that repeated exposure is going to make it more and more likely that that's what caused the condition. So basically, it's one of those conditions, and then you factor in how long you were there to determine the payout. And the payouts can be up to $550,000, plus if it's a death case, an additional $100,000.
Wow.
So,
well, it seems like they're considering the two most important variables, which is how long you were actually at the base and then what condition you possibly got from being there, and the likelihood with how long that you were stationed there. You mentioned, it is moving fast. They announced this entire initiative in September.
Even the option in September.
Yeah, and they've deposited cash out on three different
three of
cases,
them, and 20 out just waiting.
20 offers. And while that is fast, with 100,000 cases, over 100,000 cases, I mean, that seems like a very small portion.
Well, it is, but again, there was a big issue with people deciding whether or not they wanted to go for that. It's an elective option. You don't have to. You can choose it. And there are some pluses and minuses. And, there was a situation like that with the Boy Scouts too. You could do a supposedly quick payment, but how quick is it really going to be? And do you, would you rather hold out longer and get more money? So people, I think, were very hesitant, seeing that that this is going to be fast. I think that will probably encourage some more people to go that route. And then once people start going that route, that sort of clears out so that the other ones will move more quickly too. The ones that really do involve, some intense scrutiny and some real analysis, and some of these conditions that are less clearly linked to the specific chemicals, dealing with the causative factors. So, if you do have a Camp LeJeune claim already, that is an option to consider. If you have not made a claim, but you were stationed there, but some people are like, that'll never happen, blah, blah, blah. It's happening. And I mean, if you didn't want to deal with all of the hassle of it, here's a way that you can avoid some of the time consuming issues. Again, pluses and minuses, it's going to speed it up. If it's a difficult to prove case, like we were talking about, suppose you used a lot of weed killer and you have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Okay, you don't have to worry about that. Just simplified eligibility. I mean, the downsides are that you don't have the chance for some crazy high, verdict, because it's going to be capped at the amounts. The other downside is that if you had more than one of the conditions, you can't get double payments.
Double dips.
They'll pick the most severe of the conditions, and you get one payment for that condition. And it's capped. I mean, those are kind of the downsides.
Yeah, definitely trade-offs there, but I mean, it's an option, which I think is the best part, because it opens up, and like you said, it speeds up the process for the cases that don't want to go down that path.
Yeah.
That's completely fine. But since, you're able to kind of split them up a little bit and be more efficient with one side, then the other side has less blockage, right? Less cases that need to be dealt with.
It speeds everything along. And again, these cases, there is a deadline on these cases, and it's August of 2024. And while that might sound like it's a long time, like 9 months from now. I mean, that time goes by really fast. It's important that you get all of your medical records in. So don't wait till the last minute. Don't,
Yeah.
if you were there, it is, this is a pretty efficient process. And it's, you should do it. You should jump in and do it, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty clear cut if you were stationed there and you have any of those conditions, because even if you don't want to go through, everything that it takes, typically you can go through this quick process. Why isn't this more common for them to set up kind of this streamlined process on the side? Because it seems to make sense for both sides, people that don't want to wait those several years, as well as, there's being a cap. So the businesses or the products, whatever it may be, know that they aren't going to get, these 1.5 billion settlements.
Well, that does kind of happen in so this is a different whole administrative remedy situation. It's a little bit different than just like a big MDL, but what you're talking about actually does kind of happen in the MDL global settlement, because if they agree to a settlement and they're going to put, however many million or $1 billion into this pot, then that process kind of weeds people out. I mean, then you kind of go into different tiers depending on how severe, the injury was. And so it is still kind of like that.
Yeah.
But that's like, once you get to the settlement point. This is just saying, you could go into, it's almost, it's like go into the settlement versus pursue your trial.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it equates to some extent.
Yeah. Similar in some aspects. Yeah, that makes sense. And I like the idea of the tiers. I mean, I think that must be an incredibly difficult process of figuring out those tiers and attaching, dollar value to some of these conditions, and then, factoring in the amount of time someone was stationed there. I mean, I can't imagine what that looks like behind closed doors, but it is much easier for the clients.
Well, I mean, and these are, some of them can be very complicated, like how many different considerations that you have. And then you minus 5% if you're a smoker, and you plus, 5%, some of these, the whole calculations and the settlements are crazy. And I used to create these whole worksheets each time, for each of my clients. So this one where you're basically just looking at what's the condition and how long are you stationed there, that's pretty fast. And
that's
it's pretty straightforward. So yeah, I mean, again, it's not for everybody, but I think it's going to make a lot of sense for a good amount of people, and they can now be confident that it is moving pretty quickly.
So if anyone was stationed at Camp LeJeune, definitely recommend just reaching out. You may have a condition that you didn't know was connected there.
Yeah, well, there's 40 different diseases. I mean, again, this is just a very small group of them that are really clearly linked, but there's over 40, and certainly you can go to our website if you want to see the full list, or reach out to us.
Well, I want to make sure we go through all the updates. We definitely had a little bit of a longer show last time, focused on updates. I see we have hair relaxer here, which it's been a while since we've heard about it.
It has been. And of course, and again, it's funny, I mean, we talk about a lot of these things over and over again. The first move that the defendants make is motion to dismiss, and they say, oh, all these claims are crap, and there's no way, even if you prove everything you say you can, you don't have a case, blah, 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 blah. So they had filed a motion to dismiss. I think that was filed back in the summer, I think in July, and it finally got heard and decided, and the case is moving forward. Again, they had a bunch of claims. I think four did get dismissed, but all of the rest are moving forward. So the litigation is actively moving forward now. Again, now that they're not just going to get rid of it at the front end, all of the real heavy duty discovery starts, where they start exchanging documents, and we get those smoking gun documents and see what was going on, as you say, behind closed doors and all the shenanigans. And so there's right now about more than 8,000 cases have been filed. And again, each of these stages, people who are kind of watching and waiting, at this stage, when they know the whole thing's not going to go away, you're going to see a lot more cases getting filed. So again, I think there's going to be an uptick after this hearing.
It's interesting how every case kind of plays out similarly, where the defense files a motion to dismiss, and maybe they get some cases, and maybe they don't get other
some
cases.
Claims.
Some claims. And then the real kind of discovery starts, like you said, looking through for the smoking gun, seeing what the Oz behind the curtain. And as well as the sidelined individuals, right? The lawyers that have these cases, or the clients that are sitting there kind of waiting and seeing what happens, seeing if this is something that's going to be worth pursuing. And then as it gets farther into the process, those people, come out of the woodworks and they start filing those cases, and they start really compiling all that evidence together. And reminder too, the hair relaxers, this is one that has already been taken off a lot of the market, off the shelves. So people, I'm sure, are looking up, what's going on? Where's my hair relaxer? I've been using it for years, and then seeing these case updates pop up.
And just kind of as a refresher on this, and if people have not, heard the whole story about the hair relaxers, the hair relaxers are greatly increasing the risk of uterine cancer, ovarian cancer, breast cancer, endometriosis, uterine fibroids, and other reproductive injuries. And the study came out showing this, and then subsequently the lawsuits started getting filed. And as we said, the judge has said that, yes, these claims, again, we still have to, submit the proof, but the claims are viable and moving forward. And it's just, it's a really... It's a tough case, and it's obviously affecting a minority group. And it's just kind of atrocious how the whole thing came to be to start.
Yeah.
It was, I guess, originally, I think it was, they were straightening, during slavery, they started straightening African-American hair, using hot combs and a press to straighten hair, and then the chemical relaxers were created in the early 1900s. And this, just kept going on. And I think that, culturally, in marketing, they tried to tell women, you can't, this is the beauty standard, and it's kind of the white standard, the straight hair. It became something where people felt like they could not be successful in a business setting without straightening their hair. And so, millions and millions of people now use these products on a regular basis, and it's killing them.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane to me how a hair product can cause reproductive damage, right? These are cancers affecting the complete opposite side of your body. And the fact that this is in hair products, that this wasn't known or warned of, that it's already taken off the markets, and even worse, it's almost targeted at specific demographic group.
Definitely targeted. Yeah. And so what it is they're called phthalates, and they're endocrine disrupting chemicals. And so, and again, it can get absorbed in through your scalp. And certainly if you have any kind of, again, these are very caustic chemicals, and it can cause, burns, and it can get into your bloodstream. And so, and again, it's something that you use, you use it consistently. As your hair grows out, you will reapply. And so people are using it every, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks on a regular basis, and sometimes just for years.
Yeah. Well, it's good that the motion to dismiss was dismissed.
Yes, denied. It was denied.
It was denied. Clearly, the judge thought that there was enough evidence here that these claims do have weight to them. But we will be learning a lot more about this as discovery gets going. It sounds like this has been ongoing for a long time, and it was fueled a lot by this kind of beauty message that has been communicated for tens of years at this point. So I'm glad that finally this has come out and that this isn't continuing. But this is one of the more interesting cases I think that we've discussed, because a specific demographic group is being targeted. This is something that is in CVS, Walgreens. It's not a prescription, right? You don't got to go to the doctor. Exactly. You're just going in right after work. You're like, oh, you know what? I forgot my hair products, and you just pick it up off the shelf.
Yeah, well, it could, and a lot of people did buy them at drugstores, but it also can be applied in beauty parlors. So, and sometimes people did both. Yeah.
And then it's just the fact it's causing damage to the reproductive system from going on the head. I don't know. It's insane. We'll be learning more about it as the information comes out. Cases that we are handling.
Yeah, so this is a pretty juicy one, and we touched on it a little bit last week. So this is the Suboxone, and it's a narcotic analgesic that is used to reduce opioid cravings. So a lot of people who are trying to get weaned off of opioids use this product, and the case at issue is a sublingual film, which the way that it says sublingual underneath your tongue, but actually it's not necessarily that you put it underneath your tongue. We had a webinar last week, and so we've got a lot more information on this. And it's interesting. It's like this. It kind of looks like the whatever those Zen things. Yeah, but it sticks. It can stick like to the side of your mouth.
I imagine it's like those not breath mints, but they used to have those like pieces of paper that was like a breath mint that you'd put on your tongue, but they tasted like shit, and then it made your tongue feel weird.
It kind of, except those actually just dissolve. This is a little packet that has the medication in it. You actually eventually take it out.
So it's like a pouch, like a nicotine pouch. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of a lot. It looked a lot like that, and you can stick it on then that kind of like the side of your mouth, and you can actually leave it in there for up to 3 days.
Jesus Christ! I mean, in your mouth for 3 days straight.
Well, yeah, and so and again, once it starts, wearing off or whatever, you're going to put another one. You're pretty much going to have these in consistently, because you're going to need that kind of constant, infusion. If you are trying to wean off of opioids and you're having those cravings, I mean, this is what helps you.
Yeah.
What helps to reduce that. And the injuries are, horrible dental injuries, and it's really clear cut. Like if you put it on the right side of your mouth, you're seeing injuries on the right side of your mouth. It's the connection is pretty dead on here. It's causing, tooth loss, fractures, tongue injuries, gum injuries. People are needing a lot of oral surgeries, losing teeth, having to get implants. And the reason is it's super acidic. And so it alters the pH in your mouth, which then is going to, they're saying it increases dental problems by about 40%.
Wow.
And, always with these drugs, they're saying, well, okay, this maybe is bad, but are there safer alternatives? That's a big issue. When there are definitely safer alternatives. This thing used to be given in a pill form. And there are other alternatives as well, methadone, naltrexone, and Vivitrol. So there are some other ones that you can use that do not cause these dental problems.
Yeah.
Now, the manufacturer of this product is called Indivior, which I never heard of, but it's a pretty big old corporation with over close to $1 billion in earnings. Wow. Yeah. And so, this is a really new case that's out there. And a lot of people were kind of hemming and hawing about it. And, it's dental injuries, and how big are these cases, and how serious is this? And, but the person, if they really need to be treated for opioid withdrawal, there's a lot of pluses. And dental injuries aren't the hugest dollar cases. But that being said, I mean, if you've ever had to have a dental surgery or a significant treatment, it racks up. And a lot of that's not covered by insurance.
Yeah. Well, and I would imagine that, I know it's different state to state, but with pain and suffering, right, the aesthetic like effect and damage that it would have, right? I mean, let's say you have a perfect smile, you start using these, and they're intended to go into your mouth, and for long periods of time, and then all of a sudden, the side of your mouth that you started putting this in destroys your perfect teeth, your perfect smile. I mean, that has to count for something.
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot. And I mean, who doesn't hate going to the dentist? I mean, I don't know. It's like,
I hate it. I can't stand it.
Everybody. I mean, it's like the biggest thing. I mean, dentists are like, I don't know, second most hated lawyers or something, or maybe we're slightly less.
They might have actually taken the lead, honestly.
I mean, it's bad stuff. And I mean, I just dread the dentist. I mean, I personally like the laughing gas even for teeth cleaning because I get traumatized about the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, it's pretty big. And, generally the damages in there are probably like $75,000 to $100,000. I mean, so decent, but not huge. And so then the question, well, are a bunch of attorneys going to jump onto this? And the reason that this is a really juicy case is that it goes exactly to our title, prioritizing profits. This company is like the devil. I mean, they have done some shit. And so there's a lot of things that are probably going to come out that are this is probably going to be a punitive case. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a punitive case.
Wow. And
so the first thing that they've done that is kind of devilish and they've gotten caught on kind of goes back to what we were talking about with the tenofovir, the HIV medications. A little bit different. But so what happened with this was that they were selling Suboxone pill form, and making a lot of money on it. And they initially manufactured this in 2002. So the patent was going to expire or actually got onto the market. Patent was going to expire in 2009. Well, when the patent expires, now all of a sudden the generics can jump in and sell it and compete and sell it for less. So, you're going to lose money, and they're making lots of money on this. So they decided, okay, well, let's switch and do this into a film form and say that it's so much better. And so that you shouldn't even use the pill. And now we can have a new patent for the film and have everybody use the film.
Yeah.
And we get to still be the leader in the industry. We have the exclusivity. Generics lose out. So basically, they manipulated the patent process. So you don't seem too surprised.
Well,
anyway.
I'm a little confused as well. So I don't know if I would say they manipulated the patent process. It sounded like, compared to the AIDS situation, which the AIDS drug was insane. They had that drug ready, and they just chose not to put out a better product because they had a patent for a not as good product. This one, it almost seems like they recognized that their patent was running out, and they were just scrambling to find something, and so they came up with this film, which, I can see the attraction of it is if it's in your mouth, up to 2 to 3 days, you're getting that constant feedback, that constant medication release compared to a pill, which, you just throw in once. I can kind of see that there. It doesn't seem as nefarious, I guess.
Well, the DOJ actually did think it was pretty nefarious.
Yeah.
Well, they said, hey, they're trying to manipulate this because now they're saying that's not good, this is good, so
Doesn't every medical company do that, though, when they, release a new drug for, a similar disease, and especially after patents run out? Don't all of them say, hey, that old one's old, come get this new shiny one?
Well, yes and no. I mean, but they really should have something new and shiny. This is just a different delivery system.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's really not something new. They're just trying to keep people, and again, the patents, I mean, it makes sense because people do put a lot of money into creating these drugs and doing all of the testing and blah, 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 blah. And so they should get the benefit of that. And so they make a lot of money. And, I mean, really, the cost of drugs when they're exclusive, it's crazy expensive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, and that affects a lot. I mean, more than the individual. I mean, it's affecting the insurance companies and, it's all of us, basically. So, that's why this whole system is in place. You get it, but you get it for a set amount of time, and then you got to come up with a new drug. And you can't manipulate that. You can't cheat the system. And so what the DOJ said was that they were trying to manipulate the system. There was actually a lawsuit. It was like there was a whistleblower, and then there were the manufacturers and some states all got involved in this lawsuit. And they ended up settling that last month for $385 million. There was actually a trial scheduled to be at the end of October, and just before that, they settled the case. And they said that they were illegally suppressing generic competition by doing.
Wow. Okay. So
doing this.
Yeah, I mean that's a criminal charge, no? I mean, with the DOJ, Department of Justice.
Well, so that part wasn't. Well, that lawsuit was not criminal, but at the same time, in 2020, they agreed to pay. I'm sorry, that wasn't the DOJ. The DOJ was 2020. They agreed to pay $600 million, and in that case, they were fraudulently marketing the drug, saying that it was safer and less prone to abuse than similar drugs. And one of the things that they argued was that if you had children under 6 in the house, you should make sure you have this film, not pills, because it's less likely that kids are going to get the film, which turned out to be a complete lie. There was nothing to support
that seems like a bit stretched there.
So basically, they said they were false statements relating to healthcare matters, and the company pled guilty to a felony charge, and then the CEO actually pled guilty to a misdemeanor charge over these, false statements.
Yeah. Well, so it sounds like this company already has a ton on their plate, and it's already connected to this same drug that's causing all of this dental damage. Yeah. And so is that what's really getting kind of the whole lawyer community excited about this, is that they've already kind of they've already shit the sheets. Now they're rolling around in it.
Well, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. Because there's like, there's a saying, documents drive the damages. And, when you start getting these crazy documents, we know they're out there. We know that they're in trouble because they've gotten prosecuted criminally, and they've been sued and they've settled the case. We know that they've done some really nefarious things to try to make money, off of the opioid crisis, which is such a horrendous thing too. I mean, and people take that really personally and get pissed off. I mean, we're trying to be helping people. This is a huge national healthcare crisis, and now you're messing with people and hurting more people to make money. It does not go over well in this arena. So there's going to be some juicy stuff out there. And I think that's, again, potentially why people are getting kind of excited about this. Here's another thing, they knew, again, the allegations are that they knew that this was going to cause people problems, and they didn't disclose it. Some studies came out in 21 and beginning of 22, and then the FDA required that they warn about the dental injuries in, I think it was June of 2022. Yeah, June of 2022, they were required to start warning. Mm-hmm. So these cases are out there. There's not a multi-district litigation yet, but I'm confident that there will be. Yeah. Because again, I mean, it's pretty, it's pretty clear these injuries are happening. A lot of people were using this medication, thought it was safe, and now are having, some pretty horrendous injuries. I mean, hopefully not life-threatening, although, with all of these dental situations, if they're not treated, you can get some pretty bad infections.
And is there, what is kind of the council's perspective or opinion when it comes to cases like this, where you kind of have a good idea of what the victim demographic is going to look like here, right? Because the opioid crisis is massive and it affects everyone. However, there's definitely, I don't know if it's like characteristics or, that these are people that were, abusing drugs at one point or, kind of fell into the trap of getting injured and then getting overprescribed it. Does that play a role when you're deciding whether or not you're going to take a case, or whether this is going to be something where you really get the whole, kind of lawyer community to come together and start pushing the cases?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question, and it was something that was addressed during this meeting also. And so the criteria, and again, with any kind of case, there's going to be the stronger cases and the weaker cases. With the opioid crisis, I mean, there's quite a cross section of of people who were affected by the opioid crisis. I mean, there are people who, maybe had a surgery and they were, prescribed and they became addicted. There's also people who are, living on the street and buying drugs illegally. So there's there are real extremes here. Mm-hmm. And, to be able to pursue these cases, you have to, first of all, you've got to have a person who had prior dental records. We need to know what basically their mouth looked like before they started using this. Yeah. So again, it needs to be somebody who did get dental care. I mean, there are a lot of people who don't. And again, if you're homeless or the odds of that are probably less. So you need to have the dental injuries. You need to be able to establish your condition of your mouth before you started using this, and then also certain things like, for example, if somebody was also a meth user. Yeah. I mean, kind of the stereotype of meth mouth. Again, that's going to make for a very difficult case. Probably a lot of attorneys are probably not going to take those cases because how do you prove, was the condition caused by this, or was it caused, by some, by meth? I don't, there's, or really poor dental care. So not every case is going to be a strong case.
Yeah. And I think this is one that's going to be especially difficult for kind of the independent lawyer, because it seems like it's going to be a case by case situation, because there are those extremes. There are people that are living on the streets, struggling with drug addiction, using other substances, and don't have dental records. And then on the other side, there's people that, like you said, went through surgery, maybe got injured, and kind of just fell into that cycle, and then everything in between there. So is that something that I guess the council was looking at as a benefit to this case, or something that would make it more difficult to pursue?
Well, in any case, there's always going to be, each case is going to be assessed individually on how strong it is. Yeah. But cases, if you don't have prior dental records, or if you do have, some other, really confounding factors like meth use, it's going to be a very weak case. And
Yeah.
the reality is there's going to be, most attorneys are not going to take weak cases. Some attorneys maybe will take weak cases. Again, we could kind of run into that situation with some attorneys who are going to take any case, anybody who walks in, because they want to say, I have X number of cases. And that's somehow, maybe that they're trying to get into the leadership or something along those lines.
Well, and with that in mind, I mean, I'm sure that affects kind of the leadership's direction and decision with pursuing a case like this, is because they know, compared to RoundUp, yeah, compared to, the pesticide RoundUp, those are concerns you don't have at all, really, with the victims of that case. Are they living on the street? Do they have dental records? Are they going to the doctor? Maybe here and there, but that's not going to be a concern that you have. So is leadership, are they hesitant kind of approaching a case like this with that in mind, or?
Well, I think there's a hesitancy in the sense that, there's always the admonition of don't take shitty cases, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Because what happens, again, when you're doing these bellwether cases, the defense is going to want to put, the crappy cases, for trial. And of course, they're going to be lost.
Yeah.
And so that's going to hurt the whole litigation. And so that happens in all of these. They're saying, take strong cases. Don't just sign everybody up and file everything. Look at your cases, make sure they're decent cases. That's what good attorneys do. But there are some crazies out there in any business.
Well, I think this is an interesting one, and it's one that makes sense that leadership in kind of the lawyer community is getting a little bit fired up about, because there is this history of wrongdoing, and especially directly connected to this drug itself, that they, mismarketed it, saying it's better to keep around the house and less addicting, while causing these, horrendous problems for something that's intended to be in your mouth.
Well, and the reality is, you can get the same exact effects by taking it by pill form.
Yeah.
It's only in this form because they wanted to make money, and they wanted to make a lot of money. And again, it's like victimizing people who have already been victimized by the whole opioid crisis, and just victimizing them again.
Yeah.
It's not, like they don't have enough trouble and enough worries and enough problems, and so now you're going to add this onto it. And it can be really devastating. Dental stuff,
Yeah, and like I said, I think the aesthetic effect that it would have on your smile, and I know for me, I don't love going out in public, but taking pictures and stuff, I don't have to be worried about smiling or anything like that. But if you get some serious damage, that's a big effect on your life and your kind of day to day.
Well, and even aside, there, we say aesthetic, but aesthetic kind of, for example, if you want to get a job, if you're in a job position that deals with the public, we can say, oh, it's aesthetic, but it's also required for certain jobs. I can tell you that people aren't going to hire you for, even a receptionist position if you're missing a bunch of teeth.
Yeah.
It's just, it's unfortunate, but it's true. And, and then you get to the point where, it can affect your health, your ability to eat. There are a lot, there's a lot of different angles to it. The aesthetic, of course, is the first thing that pops into my mind personally. Oh my God, I wouldn't be able to smile. But there are so many aspects to it.
Yeah, I think this will be an interesting one to follow, because they've already been in deep water before.
Yeah, there's some stuff going on. This company's just...
Yeah, pretty grimy, a little slimy. Discovery is going to be an interesting one. I feel like we're definitely going to find a few smoking guns. At least.
Yeah.
Maybe just a whole dumpster fire. Who knows?
Yeah, no, this is one where I think you're going to see some punitives, and it's going to be very interesting. And a lot of well-deserving people who, might have a hard time finding an attorney for, a dental case because, again, the damages aren't humongous. But in this situation where we know this is a real bad actor, they're going to be able to get compensated. So,
and this is a case that we are currently handling and taking in. So if there is anyone listening that uses Suboxone and has had any of these dental issues, dental problems, or maybe not yet have them, it's always good to reach out, because it's something you want to be aware of and you want to kind of keep an eye on, and we'll be able to get those medical records to make sure everything's looking.
Yeah, well, and also, if you're hearing about this and you're using it and you haven't had problems, again, speak with your doctor, because maybe you want to switch over to something else that's not going to cause
pill form.
These. Right, yeah, there are alternatives that are far safer, and that we're, and again, we're not doctors. We're certainly not telling, but we're just telling you to talk to your doctor and ask about options, that might not have these risks, and that's not supporting this darn company.
Well, we are coming to a close here on the hour. Was there something you wanted to touch on, or anything you wanted to go over?
Not necessarily. We have. I don't know. I mean, we had a question about why it takes so long for cases to get to trial. I mean, we can just quickly kind of address that because, I mean, there are a lot of reasons, but I think that people are under they're kind of disillusioned, and part of that I think is just TV, and you see
Suits, baby. From one scene to the next, they're cutting 9 months of trial work and trial prep and everything out of there.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. It's like at the beginning of the hour you've got the problem, and at the end of the hour you've got the jury verdict, and so I think people, I mean, I think most people know that that's not realistic. But there's a lot of reasons why it takes a long time, and we've hit on them on some of the cases about once you file the lawsuit, the first thing that's going to happen is there's going to be a motion to dismiss, and a lot of times from the defense, you're going to have to. And again, there's a lot of cases backed up. The court has to schedule these hearings, make these decisions. Sometimes it takes months to get a decision, and then this discovery process takes a long time, fighting over what documents get turned over. Depositions, and then getting on a trial calendar. And things got so backed up with COVID where, nobody could do anything in person. But I mean, civil trials have always been, they're always kind of pushed to last. I mean, the criminal is going to get, first dibs, and you're going to get, domestic and those sorts of things. So the civil trials are kind of like the last to go. So, the reality is, depending on where you live, I mean, it may take, 9 months to get to trial. It may take 2 years. It may take 3 years. The defense always wants it to take longer because if they're going to have to pay money, they want to hang on to their money as long as they can and drag things out. And then you've got judges' schedules and the attorney schedules, and it's just like so frustrating. And you'll have these attorneys like, "Oh, it's my kid's birthday. I need to," and like, oh my God.
This is a little more important than little Timmy's birthday. Okay.
Well, little Timmy's birthday is very important, but have it on Saturday and be in trial on, Monday through Friday. I mean, for God's sakes.
No, that's fair. I mean, I think people don't necessarily understand, and I know I didn't and still struggle with understanding the magnitude, the size of some of these cases and all the moving parts and how much organization everything takes in order to, not even just get it to trial, but to get it through the initial phases with a motion to dismiss, with the discovery, all the while, every step that you take, the defense is trying to slow it down as much as possible to, keep the money in their coffers, keep the stock up, keep things looking good for investors. There's just a ton of moving parts across the board. Yeah.
Well, and this question was more specific about, an individual case as opposed to a multi-district litigation.
That makes sense, yeah.
But again, I mean, everything is bigger in the MDL and takes longer. But even on the smaller cases, even on the individual cases, I mean, it still takes, months to years.
Yeah.
And again, it depends a lot on where you live and, what the court system is like there, how backed up it is. There are, here in Arizona, I mean, we have like an alternative resolution where people, certain sizes of cases have to go through an arbitration rather than a trial. And then if you don't like your arbitration result, then you can go to trial. So there's, ways that different jurisdictions try to weed out some cases or get some cases pushed into settlement or resolution prior to trial. That's just been, as long as I've been practicing, it's just always been an issue. And there's been, various things suggested to try to speed the system up. And, nothing's ideal, but it does take a long time, unfortunately. And, obviously settlement can be a good thing in that it's it's guaranteed. You know what you're getting, and you're done and finished with it and off the calendar.
Well, and I think that kind of connects back to the Camp LeJeune settlements and why that's so beneficial is because some of those cases can take a long time, a very long time when going to trial. But the setup that they have is speeding up the process for anyone that is interested in it. And there's still the option to go to trial if they want to, if they think it's better for the client or the client would rather do that. But there's those guide rails set up.
Yeah. So, I mean, and we'll get calls, oh, I think, my attorney's dragging his or her feet and I don't understand why. And then, well, how long has it been? Well, it's been like 3 months. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And unfortunately, things just don't get settled that fast.
A while.
Yeah. So.
Well, that is a good question because I think that's something it's hard to really fully understand and grasp. Like I said, I still struggle with it unless you're working in it like you have for the last many years. And then also the TV shows just don't make it any better because they are, I mean, it's insane when you're watching Suits and they just skip to every trial instantly and within minutes. And it's like, we got to, move up the trial date. And it's just everything happens. Like you said, the problem is introduced at the beginning of the hour and it's solved and the jury's, making a decision at the end of the hour when realistically that entire process can take months and years.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, it gives people unreasonable expectations and then they think their lawyers suck and their lawyer might suck, but not because of that.
Not because of that. Well, I think that is a fantastic ending point there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, prioritizing profits, dangerous drug and product cases. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to throw it down in the comment section, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, wherever you're seeing it. We'd love to hear some feedback. And if it's something you don't necessarily want to post, you don't want to put it out there, always feel free to email us. podcast@showeredlaw.com and stories, questions, whatever it is. We're always here to listen, happy to discuss it. But with that being said, I hope everyone has a fantastic week.
And Thanksgiving, a fantastic Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Which is actually tomorrow for us, but when this is released, I guess we hope that you had a fantastic Thanksgiving.
Very true, very true. Alrighty, have a good one, everyone. Prioritizing profits. Prioritizing
dangerous drug and product cases.